Let me just a little bit. Thank you. Don't hear it. Greetings of peace, my guys. So today is another good day. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember that I had promised to bring for you a very good episode. This one is not just one episode, but we hopefully that it will be indeed continuing interviews that will be bringing for you. We'll bring them to you to educate you, maybe to give you the morale, to change you, to change the way of the perspective that you look the life in, so that maybe it might change your youthfulness, it might change many things in your life. So make sure you keep tuned and subscribe to our YouTube channels. With me, I think today I have a very important person. He has indeed encouraged me a lot in my life, and he has done many things to my life, alhamdulillah. And before maybe we start and he greets us, I'll just give you something small about him, maybe tell you who he is, maybe just his name, and then he will give us a proper introduction of himself. But for me, I'll just but mention a few about him. So today here with me, I am with a great person indeed. I am with Michael Usher. He is a writer, a historian, and he is also a deep ecologist. He has lived many lives, I can say that, because he has lived as a tourist, he has lived as a nomad, he has lived many lives indeed. So today is a good day that he will be sharing some part of his life, and maybe those parts we hopefully that because we choose them well and we choose them keenly, they will maybe give you a very deep meaning to your life, maybe change your life for the best, because indeed this one, there is a part that he will tell us of how his life changed. And indeed, let me not keep you a lot maybe waiting and everything, so we will start with the introduction. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You good?
I'm very good, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, and feel welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, we are in Ramadan, so don't worry, maybe we don't have coffee. And
don't worry about that.
Okay. So maybe you can introduce yourself, tell the viewers who you are maybe.
Okay, well, I was born in England. I'm from England, and for the early part of my life, I wanted nothing more than to be a soldier. I wanted to be in the military, and when I left school at the age of 18, I joined the army. I was served in the parachute regiment, which was a kind of elite unit, very tough to get in. Only 1 in 4 people actually passed the selection for the parachute regiment, and I was in action with after I passed the selection course. In fact, the first thing that happened was my best friend, who was also 18 years old, was shot dead during the training by accident. It was a training exercise, and he was shot dead by accident and died the same night, and just standing next to me, really. And that was quite a shock. That was my first introduction to sort of sudden death, and that had a lasting impact on me. But anyway, I did pass the selection course. I went into action with the parachute regiment, and I saw another 11 comrades killed, mostly by radio-controlled bombs. And that was quite a sobering experience, of course, but also I was quite proud to have passed the selection course. But from then I went on to the Special Forces, the SAS regiment, and that was even tougher to get in, and it was quite a different thing because to get into the Special Forces, it's all about individual determination. You don't work as a team, you're set off in the mountains on your own with all your equipment. You have to cover maybe 50 kilometers, and it's dark and it's cold, and you have to cross rivers, and you have to navigate with a map and a compass, carrying these tremendous sort of weights on your back. And that goes on for day after day, and each day it gets harder and harder and harder. And so when I finally passed, I felt very, very proud to have done that. Because as I said, only 1 in 10 people actually get through it. So I did feel it was a very, it was a great personal achievement, I think. But as that was just the selection course, and eventually I got really disillusioned with the military life. I didn't think it was a way I wanted to spend my whole life. I'd learned quite a bit being in the military, and it was a great challenge, and as I said, I learned a lot, but it wasn't the way I wanted to spend my life. And so I eventually left the army, and I saw an advertisement for volunteer teachers in the Sudan, as it happened. And I applied for the job. I was told I didn't need any previous experience. I actually had a degree in English by that time, and they gave me the job, and I went out to Sudan. And then that was how I came to Africa. And I loved the Sudan, loved the people. From the very first day, I thought I was in the most interesting country in the world, and that's the way it turned out.
So thank you. Maybe there is this youth that maybe want to join the army, and they have heard what you have talked about the army, and maybe like the work of volunteering, because you have said like you came to Africa, there you are. A post that you saw people volunteering to teach English in Africa, right?
Yeah.
So, like that's how you came to Africa. So maybe that these people first that they fear volunteering work. Maybe people say, "Oh, I cannot do like something that is for free." I cannot do something that I am not paid good and all those stuff. So maybe what can you tell them as we begin?
Well, personally, I think that when I volunteered as a teacher in Africa, it was the best thing I ever did. It really changed my life because I found myself in a country at that time, and this is 40 years ago. In Sudan, there were virtually no roads. It was just one road, actually, one asphalt road from Khartoum to Port Sudan. In many places, there was no electricity. The town I lived in, El Janina, which is right on the border with Chad, it's over 600 kilometers from the capital, Khartoum. Water, it had no electricity. In fact, we kept water I lived in a mud house, and we kept the water in a big earthenware pot called a zir. And if you wanted water, you had to go into the street and call a donkey man who brought water from the well, and he would come into your house and pour water into your big pot. And the pot was great because it kept the water really cool. Not really freezing cold like in a fridge, but just the right temperature of coolness, because of course the pot is porous and it keeps the water cool in that way. So that's how we got water. No electricity. We used oil lamps in the evening. Nobody in the town had electricity. Well, 1 or 2 people had private generators, but that was all. There were very few cars in the town. But every day I would go to the market. Everyone was really friendly. That was the other thing. People really looked after each other. They're extremely friendly. You could talk to anyone. And in fact, that's how I learned Arabic, just talking to people in the market. They were always ready to speak to you. And you'd see these great camel caravans into the town every day, these beautiful with carrying spears, riding into the town. And I would go up and talk to them and ask where they come from. Mostly they come across the border from Chad. and across the Sahara Desert, and this was actually in the Sahara Desert, or on the edge of the Sahara Desert. So it was really wonderful, and it was like being in a different world, like something from the Arabian Nights or these stories that I'd read as a child, and I really loved it there. It was a completely different place from the one I'd grown up in. And of course, I'd grown up in England, in a place with a lot of motor cars and machines and, traffic lights and all these things, but here suddenly I was in a world without machines, and it was a world where everyone, as I said, everyone was friendly. There was a sense of community. Everybody looked after each other. Everybody was friendly, and they didn't depend for their lives on machines. So that was something that, that really impressed me anyway.
Oh, thank you so much. So I think the first lesson we have learned there is that from England, where you had a much better life than where you came to, right? Because you came to a place in our eyes, in normal eyes, when someone looks in it with their normal eyes, they may say you came from a place that there were machines, there were vehicles, traffic lights, there were electricity, mobile phones, or anything that was there with the communication. But now you have come to a place where you have said you are living in a mud house, right? And then you are using the oil lamp to lamp during the night. You are fetching water from maybe the donkey man was coming with the water, and maybe you get it from there. Then I think to the youth, this is the first lesson you should learn, because many youth think you can always start, you can't go down. For example, I am in level B. For example, my life is a middle class. I cannot go back to lower class to start my life there. But you have heard that our guest today here, Michael Usher, started his life after he was already up. He went down again, where he wanted to know what he really wanted in his life. He did what he really liked in his life. The way he saw the life there down is the way he liked it. So for you youth, maybe you might be struggling now, maybe I have learned to university, I cannot maybe do mjengo work with the building work, I cannot do conductor work, I have my degrees. But you have heard, you can start from down. You can even you can go from an apartment and you go live in slums, but start there and then life will open up. And this, you'll get it by the end of this session, because indeed much more is coming. So maybe I might ask, what motivated you a lot, to live your life, after maybe now you have become a teacher, right, in Sudan. So after you have become a teacher, you left that life of teaching, and then because first, please, can you maybe tell us, you said that where in Sudan you learned Arabic because people were very friendly.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Maybe you can tell us maybe how many languages do you speak right now?
Well, 5 languages.
5 languages. Maybe to be specific a bit.
Sorry?
To be specific, maybe.
Well, Arabic, Swahili, Italian. My wife is Italian. My children speak Italian. French, and English.
English, right. So,
that's
really good. Yeah. So if you're there outside, and maybe if you're Kenyan maybe, or just 2 languages, maybe English and your mother tongue, you can add a language. You can add a language. Indeed, adding a language, it will you can say it will add flavor to your certificates, because right now everyone has a degree, everyone has a certificate, everyone has a diploma, everyone has a master. So maybe by learning that one language, the French language, the Arabic language, the Spanish language, any other language, it might be an open up to you to get a mighty job, or to get something that will give you something that is good, or something that is mighty to your pocket. Thank you. So maybe you have told us you started interacting with the nomads.
Yes. Well, when I lived in Janina, I had my own camels, because, as I said, there were no cars. The school I worked at was actually a long way from where I lived, and all the teachers who worked there, they went either on donkeys, horses, or camels. So I had my own camels. I actually had a horse at one time, but I had camels at other times. And I used the camels to ride to school. And the school, as I said, had no electricity, no running water, but the school building was in a very huge area where there was grass, there were trees, so you could leave your horse, your donkey, or your camel in this big yard, and it could wander around all day eating the grass. So that was good, and so I got used to camels. And as I said, I used to see these nomads coming into the town every day, and I was very curious about them. And eventually, I used to go and visit them sometimes, and at the weekends or my days off, I would go and visit nomad camps around the town, riding my camel. I found them very, very hospitable. I mean, they would always welcome a guest. And for them, this is something I learned, that generosity and hospitality, and I'll say more about this later, they're absolute qualities that you must have. And if you don't show generosity and hospitality, it's a great disgrace, aib, as they would call it. Okay, so if someone turns up to their camp, they will offer him or her, everything that they have, the best of everything they have. If they have meat, they will offer you meat. They will slaughter a goat for you. If they have a chicken, they'll slaughter the chicken. If they don't have any of those, they will just offer you asida, which is something like ugali, the same kind of thing. Camel's milk, they will offer you the best of everything that they have. And they will make a place where you can sleep for the night. And they really insist that you stay. I mean, it's not a matter of, for them, hospitality is more of a right than it's almost like a right. It's something people expect to be given and will always be given by the nomads.
Oh, amazing. So maybe you have mentioned that you had a car. These days, like maybe you can say like in schools right now, you see a teacher, someone coming with maybe like let's say a Toyota Corolla, someone coming with a Prado, someone coming with another type of a car. So maybe with the camels, the donkeys, and the horses, were there classes? Were there like someone, if they want to show themselves, maybe that show off, that's classy. If someone want to show themselves, maybe what could they prefer between the donkey, the camel, and the horse, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. If someone has a nice horse, it's oh, look at my horse. It's not, but they wouldn't say that anyway, because for the nomads, you never say, "Oh, you have a nice camel," and you would never say, "You have a nice child." You're a beautiful child. You don't say that to nomads, because for them, if you say that, it's putting the evil eye on the whatever it is. So you never, if you say, "Oh, that camel's really nice," and say "Matasa," like this, you're not supposed to say it, So So, and I think that has a very important function, because it stops people showing off. Because if nobody is allowed to say, "Oh, you have a beautiful camel," or "You have a beautiful child," then nobody can really show off about it. So
make sure you don't boost, live right. Don't be like the boosting, the show off. I leave it. Just leave it, because like for example, these days I have asked you that because these days, for example, you see in TikTok, Facebook, and everywhere, when someone has a good car or they buy a car, maybe even if it's not that good, but they want to show it to everyone. But they don't know that when they give birth to a kid, these days, even like a small, a young, a very, like I can say, a toddler, they have been shown off on the internet, like at TikToks and everywhere, all those screens. But they don't know in Islam, we have been taught like al-ainu haq, the eye has a right and the tongue has a right. So for example, that saying, "Oh, you have a good thing, oh, you have this," it might be the end of the thing. So I think that's why indeed the nomads, they were saying like, they were maybe warning people like, you should not compliment about their things, you should not, because like that saying, for example, I say, "Oh, you have a good phone, oh, you have an iPhone 15, that might be the end. Maybe you go and the iPhone 15 maybe get lost, or maybe it get damaged. So I think that one among the reasons why they did it like that. And then also we might think of another thing. It reduced the people show off. Because whenever someone shows off, I think God stops blessing them. The blessings they decreases a lot. So with the nomads, they didn't have that show off, and that's a lesson. You as a youth, you as an old person, you have a kid, you should teach your kids that, because it will really help them. Anyway, I would like maybe to go to the next question. You have said that sometimes you used to go to the nomads, you spend the weekend there. Indeed, like you have said, the hospitality they had, it was like we can call it like it was like a must for them to give you the hospitality. So what is maybe the part about how did it maybe change your life living in the nomads?
Okay, so I should add that I actually, after 3 years working as a teacher in Sudan, I decided to give up my job as a teacher, and I went to live full time with a nomad tribe. And this was the most remote nomad tribe, and there are many nomad tribes in northern Sudan, but this was the Kababish. It was one of the most well-known, but the most remote tribe, probably. Their territory was in North Kordofan, but they ranged right deeply into the Sahara Desert, almost as far as Libya and as far as the Egyptian border. And so they were real desert nomads, and that's why I chose them to go and live with. And so I lived with them full time. I lived with them as one of them. I dressed like them. I spoke their language. I already knew Arabic when I went to live with them. Of course, they spoke a particular dialect, which I had to learn. It wasn't so different from the dialect that I already knew. And so I lived with them as one of them, riding camels, doing what they did. I did the same work that they did, herding the camels, herding the goats, watering the camels. I accompanied them with a salt caravan. They used to go deep into the desert to bring back rock salt. It's called atroun in Arabic. It's not the kind of salt you have with your meal, which is white salt. This is a sort of red color. But it's salt, and they used that. They needed that for their animals, because the animals actually need to eat salt, and if they don't get it, they will die. So it was very important for the nomads. And I accompanied them on their salt caravans. Sometimes they would take herds of camels for sale in Egypt, which took about. It's called a very ancient caravan route called the Darb al-Arba'in, the 40 days road, and that would take. Well, it usually took more than 40 days to get there, so it's a very long journey that I accompanied them several times on that journey. So I actually lived with them as one of them, and that was the most interesting experience of my life. I lived with them for 3 years. In that time, I never spoke English. I only spoke Arabic, and it was to the extent where I used to dream in Arabic when I was with them. So, and in all that time, never saw a motor car. I never saw a policeman. Never saw anyone from the government. Just those people lived this very self-contained life. I mean, they did move around. They didn't just stay in one place because they were nomads. But most of them had never been in a city, never been in a motor car. You know, they didn't have any modern technology, no television, and there were no computers in those days anyway. This is 40 years ago, but they didn't have any modern technology at all. They lived the kind of life they've been living for thousands of years.
Maybe you have just said that you didn't see government in like. So does it mean like it's kind of they didn't live political life?
That's true. They didn't live a political life. In fact, they didn't even know the name of the president. I mean, I remember once I had a £10 Sudanese note in my hand with a picture of the then president, Japani Mary. And one of the nomads said to me, who's that man on the money? I said, well, it's the president, So what do you mean the president? We don't have a president, And for example, if you said they were Sudanese, they would say, no, we're not Sudanese, we're Arabs. The Sudanese are those people who live in the villages, So, they did interact with villages because there were villages on the edge of the desert where they would sell livestock, sometimes a camel, sometimes sheep and goats more often. Sometimes they would sell milk, camel's milk. They would sell animal skins. And with the money they got, they would buy grain, sorghum grain, dura, which they would then take back into the desert with them. So,
what were the maybe we can call the staple food that they used to eat there? Maybe the food that is common there, because for example in Kenya you can say ugali, mchele, chapati. So there, what did you used to eat?
Okay, well, there are two answers to that. The staple for desert nomads is camel's milk. Okay, so that's what they get free living in the desert. So they will go maybe 3 months of the year. They go to the deep desert pastures, which are called the juzu, and they'll stay there and they'll just live on. This is mainly, it's the men who do this. They will leave the families behind and they will just live on camel's milk. So no food, no water, just camel's milk for 3 months, So that's it. And camel's milk is very, very nutritious. It has all the vitamins you need, even vitamin C, apparently, And I wonder this because the nomads never eat vegetables. They never eat, or very rarely anyway, eat vegetables. They very rarely eat fruit, and yet they're very, very healthy. And they told me it's the camel's milk.
Whoa. So you can try home. Yeah. You can try camel's milk home.
but apart from when they were in the deep desert pastures, they would eat asida, which is this like ugali, and that it's like ugali, but they would serve it with camel's milk. So that was really their staple. This ugali-like, ugali-like pudding, which is they call asida.
Maybe as we go on, can you please share with us some specific events or experiences that deeply impacted in your life when you are living with the nomads?
Yes. Once I was traveling in the deep desert. I was coming back from a trip to the deep desert with one nomad companion, and we came across this lone tent in a wadi. That's a lugger, a watercourse. Yeah. And that was a little bit odd because most of the nomads at that season had moved south, and they usually camped together. It wasn't usual to find just one tent. These tents were made of goat and camel's hair mixed together, by the way. They were made by the nomad women themselves. And we found this tent. There was a family there, a man and 2 young boys and a girl who was slightly older, his wife, and so on. A small family, and they brought us food, they welcomed us, they brought us asida, as they always did. And as we were eating, we asked them, well, why are you still here? Why didn't you move south with the rest of the clan? And the head of the family, whose name was Rai, said, well, we didn't move because we've lost all our animals. They're all dead. There was a drought at that time, and their animals had all died. The goats and the camels were all dead. And so they didn't even have camels to move their things, their tent and the family, further south. So we immediately said, well, you can use our camel. I mean, we only had 2 camels, but you can load your stuff, your tent and so on, onto our camels, and we'll help you move. And they wanted to move somewhere. It was about 3 days' journey to Rai's brother-in-law, his wife's brother. And they wanted to move to that camp, so we helped them move. And so on the way, I had quite a good opportunity to talk to him. And the first thing I noticed was he didn't seem really upset, and I thought, well, he seemed happy enough. I thought, well, somebody who's just lost all these animals. And I thought, for a nomad, that must be like going bankrupt. You lost all your sort of capital.
That means like it's like all your wealth.
All your wealth is gone. Yeah. So, but he seemed cheerful enough. Didn't seem really sort of sad about it. So I said, you don't feel, sad. You lost all your animals. He said, well, of course I do. But he said, I'm not worried because when I get to my brother-in-law's camp, he will give me a camel or give us a camel for everyday use, like fetching water, things like that. And he will also, I will help him to herd his camels. And after the one season, he will give me 2 she-camels, pregnant she-camels. And of course, they will give birth, and I'll have 4 camels. He said, I'll work another season with him. He'll give me another 2 camels if everything goes well. And they will be pregnant, and then I will have 8 camels and in a very short time. And of course, at the same time, he will also help me with food and milk and water. We will camp near to him, and all the other people will help us in the clan will help us as well. So in a very short time, I'll get my herd back, and then I'll exchange some of those camels perhaps for goats and sheep. So I'll have some small stock as well. So very, very soon, I will, have built up my herd again. I'll be independent again, So that really struck me, and I understood then that the nomads, because they shared, and not shared in the sense that everything was common property, I don't mean that, but if someone was destitute, as Rai was at that time, his family were, they had nothing, then everyone would help them and give them. As long as the other people in the clan had something to give, they would give. Okay? So this was a real revelation to me because I realized that what they had, what you might call existential security, they knew absolutely that if they were in trouble, the other people, their family, their relations would look after them. And it was absolute. I mean, it wasn't a matter of choice. I mean, they just helped each other automatically. And of course, those who gave them things, those who helped them knew that if they were in the same position ever, then they also would be helped. So they didn't have, I think in our society, we live with this insecurity, how am I going to pay the rent? And, what if I lose my job or I can't get a job or whatever, So I think, and this is not just in this country, but everywhere in the world, in civilization, people live in this anxiety and a sense of insecurity. But the nomads didn't have that. They felt absolutely safe and secure in their lives because it wasn't just about them. It wasn't just about me, the individual. It was about us, the community. And the community always came first. So they had something that I think we don't have in this kind of society. They have this feeling of security. Well, that it wasn't just about their lives; it was about our lives.
Our lives. So I think
that's something. Sorry, it really impressed me. That really changed my life.
Thank you so much. And I think that might be a very big, maybe difference with right now because right now. That young man told you, or that man told you that when he is not worried because when he gets to the brother-in-law, he will be given work and then he will get something from that work that he will restock soon. But right now, I think the people who are using you much badly, like I can say, for example, if I have a family who is rich, they want to use me in a bad way that I don't get helped, so I don't leave their work, maybe their company. Because, for example, if I take your example of maybe I give every season, I give you 2 camels which are pregnant. That means within 3 seasons, I will have give you 6 camels. That will give birth and will give birth to another 6. That is 12. With 12 camels, you are already rich. You are already you are stable. You are at least stable. But in Kenya, I think even or not even in Kenya, but in the world right now, people are living this life like they don't want to help you satisfy yourself. For example, if someone is paying you, they want to pay you something that tomorrow you'll come again, another day you'll come again. You won't be able to to stabilize yourself, maybe like open a business. If you're selling my shop, I want to give you a small amount of maybe salary so that tomorrow you don't open your shop, and so that you will always be coming to my shop. That's the difference. So just
That's true.
imagine as a maybe a viewer, what your perspective of helping your brother. You know, there is these the people that lives like Somalis, like the nomads, the Somali people.
Yeah.
The Somali people when they are living, if a brother gets a job, a well-paid job, or when they get rich, they take their brother. That's why whenever you see someone in may it be Canada, may it be America, you see a Somali in a specific place, maybe a manager place, you'll see that the other ones will also be Somali. So they help each other. But why don't we live with that love to help each other? Why don't we live with that like we want to help each other? Let everyone help their family. And indeed, if you help your family, I am sure everyone will be rich, everyone will be like stable. That's how the religions teaches us. That's how the world teaches us. But I don't know where we got these things of like we can say when my brother has something, like it cannot help me. When my brother has something, it is he is alone. I cannot like maybe benefit from it. Not relying on my brother, but at least I can get a job. That way we will help each other. And I think maybe this one really changed the perspective of the way you lived with the way that person spoke. You have said it was like kind of a revelation to you, because I think when you say that, it means like it was kind of something that you never expected like from a normal person. So just imagine, good people are there. What if you be one of them?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, could I add this?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you're right, because I grew up, like most of us, in a society where it's all about the individual, you know, it's me, you know, the ego, you know, and we're brought up to believe, you know, we have to be successful, and it doesn't matter if we exploit other people, and it doesn't matter if we, you know, ride over other people or use other people, as long as we succeed. And that basically is the ethos of business, isn't it? I mean, it's not supposed to be, but actually it is. So, you know, that's why it was such a revelation, because I realized the people I was living with, they didn't even see the same world that I saw. It wasn't a world of competition where people, you know, fighting against each other, struggling against each other, competing to be better than each other. That wasn't the world they lived in at all. It was a world, and they had this word muhanna, or muhanni. It's an Arabic word meaning kind. It literally means kindness. And that was the code they lived by. Muhanni, kindness. Muhanni in their dialect. The standard word is muhanna, but they said muhanni. Okay, but it literally means kindness, but it also has much bigger implications like generosity, hospitality, mutual aid, and mutual well-being. Okay, so it is your job in life to help other people. That's the way they saw the world. Not to help yourself, but to put others first. Yeah, and it wasn't just the family. It wasn't just the clan. You know, I was a complete stranger to those people. They didn't know where I come from because they knew nothing about the world. Even if I said I came from England, they wouldn't know where that was, you know, so they had no idea about it, you know. So, and I'm not saying that to put them down. I think they were fine. They knew everything about the world that they lived in, which was enough for them. Anyway, they didn't know anything about me, where I came from, yet they welcomed me, you know, into their families, and I stayed with them. I lived with them for 3 years. I never paid a penny, and if I'd offered them money, they would have been really insulted, you know. You don't offer money to nomads, you know, because they say, what do you mean? You know, what do you take me for? You're offering me money. You know, what do you mean? You know, so you wouldn't dare to offer them anything, you know. And it wasn't only me. There were people who lived in the clan that I lived with. There were people from other tribes who'd been also welcomed into their community. So not everybody was related. I mean, a lot of people were, but not everyone. Some people had just been welcomed from other tribes and just stayed there and lived with them. And, you know, like me, they did the same work. They would do the same work as the people in the clan, water the animals and look after the animals. And, you know, they did the work that was expected, but they were welcome. They weren't say, oh no, you're a stranger, you're a foreigner, we don't want you here. You know, there was none of that. So, you know, this kindness, this mahani, it extended not just to the family and the clan, but to everybody.
So that means like it was, you can say they lived that life that we come from one father and we come from one mother.
Exactly, yeah. Well, you're all Bani Adam.
Bani Adam. We are all Bani Adam. We are all from our father who is Adam. Yeah. So let me ask you, when did you have a visitor whom you didn't know where they are from and you welcomed them in your home? When did you maybe go to somewhere and you are welcomed and they didn't know where you are from or your whereabouts? Maybe you have just mentioned like some of them, they didn't know even your name, and they didn't bother even to ask.
At first they wouldn't ask, but, because when a stranger arrives at a nomad camp, it's not polite for the nomads, it's not considered polite to ask, well, where have you come from? Where are you going? Why are you here? You know, that's considered to be rude. So at first, I mean, maybe later, after a few days, they might ask, but certainly to start off with, they won't ask you to explain why you're there. And their hospitality is really extreme, because even if someone turns up from a clan with whom they have a feud, a blood feud, they are still obliged to welcome them, and the host will defend that guest with his life, even though he may come from an enemy clan, something like this. You know, they have some kind of feud between them, and they will know who this person is. You know, that, you know, one of your clan killed my uncle, you know, 50 years ago or something. But still, he will be offered absolute hospitality, you know, the same as anyone else.
That is a wow to them. And maybe we can mention, or we can I can ask, what are some of the core nomadic values that you believe modern society could benefit from? If they maybe they have the core values, they can benefit, they can change their lives.
Well, as I said, I mean, the core values can be summed up in this word mohani or mahana, which means kindness. Yeah. Okay? So basically, we, I think, live with what you might call this narrative of separation, where we just see ourselves as separate individual. But not only ourselves and each other, we see nature as a collection of separate material objects. Now, what I understood after I'd lived with the nomads for a while, this the most difficult thing really, when you were brought up where I was, to understand this, that they didn't see themselves as being separate from each other. They didn't see themselves as being separate from nature. And they did not see themselves as being separate from the divine, the sacred. Okay, for them, you know, the divine, the sacred, was something that was in everything, not just humans, but in everything. And it also transcended everything. So they didn't claim to understand what the divine was. It was this tremendous force which ran through everything and created everything. They didn't pretend to understand what it was. They didn't believe that they could control it. Okay? I mean, now we live in a society where people think they can control nature, for example. Okay? But that to the nomads would have been just like, you know, something really stupid, you know, to think you can control nature, you know, or control the divine, you know. So, yeah, those are the values I think the nomads lived by. So it was this sense of connection with everything, that they were, connected to themselves, which we aren't.
Yeah.
They were connected to each other, which we aren't. And they were connected to nature, which we aren't. We think we're separate from nature. And finally, they were connected to this divine spirit in which we all live. And they considered themselves as part of that spirit. Okay, so whatever name you want to give to, you could call it Allah, you call it God, call it whatever you like. But for them, it wasn't a person, of course. It was this divine spirit that just transcended everything and was part of everything.
Wow, wow, wow. So I think these people, they didn't have a kind of, we can say something like, they didn't have the classes that today we have. We have the poor class, we have the middle class, we have the high class, we have the VIP, we have all those classes. These people didn't have these classes. Indeed, they live just a normal and a good life. So what kind of a life do you live with? We start with yourself, with that the supreme being, that force that you believe in. How is your relationship with him? And then after that, I will ask you the second question. I ask you, what is your relationship between you and your family? What is your relationship between you and your society? What is your relationship between you and your community? And lastly, what is your relationship between you and everything? Those questions, indeed, I will leave them rhetorical. Ask yourself, consider them, and then after that, maybe they might change some of your thinking or some of your acting in this life. And we also mentioned that you are a writer. So maybe we can talk a bit about these books you have written. And to be specific, maybe you can tell us about a key theme or a message of one of your books that you feel like it's very important to share with today's world.
Yes, well, my most recent book is called The Oasis of the Last Story, Tales from the Desert. And it's a partly fictionalized account of my experience in the desert for over 40 years. I mean, it's not made up in the sense that what happens in the book actually did happen, but it's fictionalized in the sense that I put all these experiences together as one journey. So everything that in the book actually happened, but I put it together as though it was just one journey, rather than spread over 40 years. And again, it's about everything that I learned in the desert. So I started off, I mean, I was told, where I grew up in England, that, this was the best of all possible worlds. This was the best way to live. And when I went to live with the nomads, I realized that that was wrong. It was just wrong, because those people were very happy. They had this, I don't mean the sense of, doing a dance and a song every day. I don't mean that kind of happiness. This existential happiness, this feeling that they were at home in the world because they had this sense of meaning, which I think, and that's, I think, is the worst thing about our society, is that we've lost, or many people, let's say not everybody, but many people have lost this sense of meaning. And that's because we invest all our hopes and our meaning in material things. Get in the house, get in the car, get in, a material, and it's not just things, it's also objective experiences. I go on holiday here, and I do this, and I go to the gym, and all those things. So it's not just things; it's objective experiences as well. So what this book is about is my spiritual awakening in the desert. That's what these journeys led up to. This spiritual awakening, where I started to understand that you cannot get happiness from material things or from objective experiences, even relationships or substances, like alcohol or drugs, whatever, or even, activities, like even from writing books, which is what I do, you don't get happiness from any of those things. Happiness comes from having this sense of meaning and purpose in your life. Okay? Yes, you can enjoy those things. You can enjoy your relationship. You can enjoy writing or going to the gym or playing football, but they won't bring you lasting happiness. That only comes from having this sense that you belong here, that you are, at home in the world.
Thank you so much. So I think any youth who thinks like they are maybe they are being right now they are fighting trauma, they are fighting depressions and everything. You have known what happiness is, and indeed remember that you can get this book and you can read it, and if you read maybe also awaken you spiritually. And remember, when you are awakened spiritually, everything, as we know, that is controlled by the mind and the heart. The mind and the heart controls everything. So when you get the awakening, the spiritual awakening, it will really help you maybe take a step from where you are stuck. And remember, the book is the oasis of the last story. This one is Tales from the Desert. It was written back in 2022. That is just last year, but one, so it's a recent book, and you can get it maybe via in the Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. So visit Amazon. Just ask or like Google. Remember that they do deliver. So it's okay if you do ask for it, and it might be a chance for you to awaken yourself, for you to wake up, for you to see a life in another perspective. And also it might be a chance for you to have a story to narrate, for you to change someone's life, for you to be someone's we can say like a life to someone. Because there is that person, there is that time that someone is just weak, they are lows, and then you kind of give them the breath of the life. You just give them that breath of life. And remember that it must not be that breath that you might understand that you go kiss them and give them the breath, but it can also be a word that you tell someone that might awaken them. It might also be something that you might learn from this book that will awaken them. So make sure you follow these stories, and inshallah, hopefully they will change your life. And as we go on, I would also like maybe to ask about something also, like it seems you have lived two lives now. There was a life that you lived before you met the nomads, and there was this life that you are living, or I can say the present life. So maybe how can you maybe look at them, or how can you differentiate them? What are the aspects, or what are the things that you see might also help especially the youth of the today's world, maybe?
Do you mean that when I was in the military, or?
I mean, yeah. You see, you have two lives. There was a life that you lived before you joined before you came to Africa, before you lived with the nomads. Yeah. That I can say the military life.
Okay.
And also there is this life that you are living after you have lived with the nomads.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was kind of you had a change of your life.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe how can you take the two lives, and what are the biggest differences that maybe you can tell us about?
Well, I think the military life, and don't get me wrong, I'm still proud of having been in special forces as a personal achievement, because I know it's something not everyone could do, perhaps, and one feels proud of that. At the same time, I'm really against militarism, because I think we can see, when we look at some of the situations in the world today, what that can lead to. I mean, look what's happening in Gaza, for example. We can see this kind of militarism can really lead to a lot of destructive and destroying people's lives. So that's the thing I've turned my back on. As I said, I can still feel proud of my personal achievement without actually believing in this military approach to everything, this militarism. because it has been very, very destructive. And, you know, if we look, as I said, if we look at what's going on, we'll see it's a terrible thing, you know. So that's one big difference. I really turned my back on that. But the other thing is, as I said, that this spiritual awakening I had, it didn't turn me into a perfect person. I'm still, you know, very far from being that. But one thing it did make me aware of is when I've gone off the path. I like to call it that, we could call it the Sirat al-Mustaqim or whatever you want, okay? With the path, I call it the path of beauty. But when I've stepped off the path, I know that I've stepped off the path. I still do step off the path. I still do, you know, get angry sometimes and still, you know, say things I shouldn't say or do things I shouldn't do. But the difference is now I'm aware and I can say to myself, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that, you know, and I can try not to do that in future. So I think, you know, what people call enlightenment, it's really not becoming a perfect human being. It's becoming aware, you know, of the work of the ego, if you like, that, you know, there are these forces within you that are doing bad things, if you like, you know, and because, I mean, it may not be terrible thing. I'm not talking about murdering people, but just, you know, maybe not helping people as much as you could, or, you know, getting angry with people, or, you know, saying things you shouldn't say, for example, or even having thoughts that you shouldn't have, because that also has an effect. You know, you might not be aware of it, but it actually does. You know, so again, I'm not saying I became this sort of perfect saintly person, but very far from it. But at least I did become aware of where I go wrong. You know, and then I could do something about improving that.
Yeah. So if you have been following this, I am sure you are getting the enlightenment, because as you have been told, like there is no one is perfect. Perfectism, we leave it to the supreme only. He is the one who is perfect. So, but imagine when you do something wrong, you know that you have done something wrong. Why are you knowing that you have done something wrong? At least it will help you get back to where to take steps back and get or start again to where you went wrong. And then also remember that we have three types of souls. We have the one that is mutma'inna. The nafsul mutma'inna, that one is like the one that is just, you can say it is close to perfectism. Not really perfect, but it is close. Like you see that someone who doesn't make a lot of mistakes, you know. And then we have another type of the soul that is a nafs al-lawama. Nafs al-lawama is a nafs, or it's a soul that or it that inside thing that whenever you do something wrong, it tells you, oh, you know what, that's what you did was wrong, and that's what we call enlightenment. And then we have the third one, which is the worst, which is a nafsu ama, we say like al-kalb al-mayit. So we have the third one, which is dead. The dead one is like you do something, you don't care. You kill, you don't care. You do something, you do whatever you are doing, you take drugs, you don't, whatever you are doing in life, you don't care. Then these people now, like especially for the youth, this one goes to the youth mostly, because youths have like this thing. For example, you are following your friends, and your friends are giving you total bad advices. You're following your friends. For example, you have just joined the university first year. Then you be going to the thing that we call sherehe daily. They're going to the clubs, doing the prostitution, video calling for 100 bob. You know what I mean? So these things, they will come to affect you later, but you might not be able to understand them now. And just imagine, you can change your life. It's not too late. It's not too late. Living a life that is different from the life that you have been brought up is not too late. It's not. You can change yourself. You can change your life. You can change for better. You can live a life that you'll be happy to tell your kids. Just imagine your kids telling your kid asking you, how did you live your you are maybe like, how did you live your university life? How will you be able to tell your kids that you are a prostitute? How will you tell your kids that every time you went clubbing? How would you feel about that? So just imagine, in case, or like in short, if you want to know what you are doing is bad or what you are doing is good, just do something that you can be able to tell someone you are doing. Just don't do something that you cannot tell someone you are doing. And again, to you, Sam, I would also like, maybe, like, there are some challenges that you are faced in life, like that you are faced to advocating like for a return, like to nomadic, we can say nomadic values, especially with this right now today's world, the arrogance they have and everything. What are maybe the most challenges that you are facing right now to try like advocate?
Well, I think the thing is, if you're brought up in this kind of society, you're actually, it comes through also through education, from the family, at least in the society I was brought up in.
Yeah.
And this creates a sort of barrier in most people's mind. So sometimes if you say what I've just said, or you just said, they say, oh, you must be stupid, you must be, because they can't imagine. They can't even, and they're hiding behind this barrier. It prevents them from feeling these things like empathy and sympathy and all those qualities that the nomads had. This kindness, Muhammad, this barrier actually prevents people, because they've been sort of indoctrinated or conditioned by the society to think in this way, and it's very difficult for them to get out of that. Now, of course, I'm not criticizing any particular person, but I think it's not their fault. I think it's, something that we're actually, forced into just by being in this society, But I think that is a great barrier that some people are very resistant to these ideas, because they see that it's a sort of an attack on the things that they believe in, materialism, money, all those things. So I don't know if that's a very good answer, but that's what I see. People being very resistant.
That's a very good answer, because these days, youth specifically, they do say, for example, you hear someone saying, with money I have everything.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I don't understand how with money you have everything. I think there are people who have money, but they don't have values. But they do say also that when you have money, the values, they are forgotten.
Right, yeah, well, I think, as I said before, you can chase wealth, you can chase material objects, having the big house, the big car, or 10 cars, whatever, but I can assure you, and this is my experience in life, and I'm over 70, I've seen quite a lot of things, I can assure you that those things will not bring you happiness. It might sound like a cliche, but I can tell you they certainly won't. It's like chasing a ghost, The moment you get hold of the ghost, you find there's nothing there. There's nothing to hold on to. And that's what happens. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a nice house or a car. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if you put your faith in those things to bring you happiness, okay, that is not going to happen. Okay? So what you need to develop is this sense of meaning in your life, and that can only come from things that are not objective. This sense of happiness, and it's something you can actually decide, as Hussein said. You can actually decide and say, today I'm going to be happy. Today be grateful for every day that you have, because that day is a gift that you've been given. So I think gratitude is very important. Say thank you for this day, and I'm going to really try and get all the benefit I can out of the day. And I don't mean feasting or getting drunk, something like that. I mean just enjoying the small things that you do, in the day.
And also, as we maybe we finish, you can what is or what can you suggest to people living like in modern society? How can they incorporate nomadic values into their lives?
Well, I come back to this key word, Mahani, kindness.
Yeah.
Okay, that if you start treating everyone with kindness, with generosity, to help others, and not just think about me, me, me. Okay, if you extend this kindness, to everyone, and then you will find it's reciprocated. The more you help others, the more it will come back to you. And that's certainly what I've found in my life. And the more you are grateful, I mentioned gratitude just previously, the more you are grateful for everything, then the more that will come back. It's like a mirror,
Yeah.
It will reflect back on you, and you will find that it actually really changes your life.
And the last question is we close. Maybe God willing, what is your vision for the future, and how do you see nomadic values shaping it?
Okay, well, I don't think we can all go back to living in the desert. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying, but I do think that we can live in communities. We can form communities uh, in which these values are practiced, in which we value ourselves, we value other people, we value nature, we don't destroy nature, and finally we value the divine. We renew our connection with something that's actually much bigger than we are, like as the nomads did. So I think those four things, connection with ourselves, with others, with nature, and with the divine. And when we have that, we can form community in which everyone practices these things. So I think that will make us, communities which are not focused on, I have a bigger car than you, or I have more money in the bank than you, something like that. And everything is based on mutual aid, mutual well-being.
Oh, wow. So thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
think these days people are maybe like that the last time that you have said like they are competing, or they call it is it my net wealth? My net wealth is bigger than yours. My net wealth is bigger than yours, which is just bullshit. In Islam, we do believe that we are being told that we have two types of wealth. There is wealth that is yours, and there is wealth that is for your inheritance. The wealth that is yours is anything that you have spent. May it be on you, may it be on another person, may it because of the divine, may it because of that stream being you believe in. And then whatever you say that is the net worth, when you die, maybe it will be just taken 50K or 100,000, maybe just some few dollars to maybe like for your barrio, and then the other ones they will be divided and we will remain getting happy. So guys, as we finish, make sure you get connection with yourself, you get connection with others, you get connection with the nature, and you get connection with the divine. Indeed, I would start with that. Get connection with the divine, get connection with yourself, get connection with others, and get connection with the nature. With these four, I think this will be the best you will ever have. Anyway, inshallah, hopefully, next time we will also come and do something else. So, guys, I think today you are happy, and God willing, we will be happy. It's already raining. That's a really good sign that we are doing something good. If you believe in Islam, we say that whenever you are doing something and then it starts raining, then that means you're doing something good. So we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the day, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Because as the youth, if they are really going to follow whatever you have taught them, it will really implement in their lives a lot. They will change. Because if they have this kindness to themselves, if they have kindness with the nature, if they take things easily, it will lead them to living a better life than the way they are living. Just the other day, is it yesterday or the day before yesterday, just this Easter weekend, I mean, a girl, a 19-year-old girl, killed herself because she was dumped by her boyfriend and she was pregnant. So just imagine such things, and they are getting many. The other time we were talking people are murdering each other, people are killing themselves. So with these values, I think these things will maybe decrease. So guys, thank you so much for your patience, and make sure also you subscribe to our YouTube channel, share it, share the video so that as many people as possible can get the benefits that you have got. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate your time with us.